Hello folks, thanks so much for having me today. My talk is titled Using WordPress with Static Site Generators. My friend Jason Bahl is joining y'all live on stage. You can follow me on Twitter at MuhsinLK and hit me up if you have any questions. My name is Muhsin and I'm a senior React developer at WordCamp, a WordPress VIP agency from Asia. I'm also an author and expert reviewer at Smashing Magazine. I come from Colombo, Sri Lanka, and it's an island in the Indian Ocean. I love to take photographs of wildlife and nature, and I also like to travel to different places when I get the time. Let's talk a little bit about Jamstack sites. Jam stands for JavaScript, APIs, and markup. JavaScript because JavaScript is a language that is used for any dynamic programming. There is no PHP or ASP.NET that renders the markup. The APIs because JavaScript is used to communicate to server-side processes through APIs. And all the markup is pre-rendered at deploy time using templates. Jamstack sites are created using static site generators, like I said. And this is how static site generators work. At deploy time, when the site is being deployed, it fetches the content. It can be WordPress, it can be any JSON file, it can be GraphQL, it can be REST API. It fetches the content and applies a template to it, and this is fed into the static site generator, and the static site generator will give you a static site. Mind you, it happens at deploy time, not at render time or runtime. So when you visit a static site, it will serve you HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. There are a few popular static site generators like Hugo, which is built using Go language at build time, and Jekyll, which uses Ruby at build time, and Gritsum uses Node.js and Vue.js for the template. JavaScript is Gitbook uses JavaScript, and it's popular among educators. And today we are going to talk about Gatsby because that's what I love most. So why you should use Gatsby for your next project? Let's talk a little bit about that. Why Gatsby? Because Gatsby is blazing fast. That is, I think, the most obvious reason you would consider Gatsby. It is fast for the right reasons. When you have a typical WordPress site, it connects to a server-side or language, which is PHP, and it connects to a MySQL database and fetches data from MySQL and renders through PHP into HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But when it comes to a Gatsby site, it already has rendered the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and it sends you HTML files. And that makes it that much faster, and you can host it on any static host. And with Gatsby, it's much easier to get 100% across the board on Lighthouse as opposed to a typical WordPress site. It is not just blazing fast, but it's also super secure because it is just static files. You cannot hack the server because there is no server-side language or there is no database, live connection to a database. So it's almost impossible to hack a static site. It is also extremely cheap because it is serving on a static host. You can even get free hosting on a service such as Netlify. Sam, who is the co-founder of Gatsby, has written this article where this company went from $5,000 a month to just $5 a month when they started hosting a Gatsby site. Awesome developer experience because Gatsby has cool helpers to tell you to use alt attributes when you are using an image tag, for example, and other benefits which gives you a great developer experience. Gatsby does not have only a developer experience but also a great user experience. Gatsby is easy to get started. Gatsby has great documentation, an awesome collection of tutorials, and many first-timers who are willing to share their experience with Gatsby. And with Gatsby, you learn React and GraphQL on the go because Gatsby uses them and teaches them to you using tutorials, for example. You can watch this video where he talks about how Gatsby helped him to get started with React and GraphQL. So the hype is real. So what really is Gatsby? Gatsby is a React-based static site generator. Like we talked earlier, it's blazing fast. And it uses React to render the markup. It is also a full-fledged application framework because you can build React apps with Gatsby. It connects to multiple APIs such as WordPress, a GraphQL endpoint, Contentful, Shopify, JSON files, and even a CSV file. And you build Jamstack sites with Gatsby like we discussed before. And it hydrates into a React app. So you can use all the awesome functionalities that React brings, such as React hooks and React context, and even Redux and Apollo, for example, which is a separate library. And let's talk a little bit about React. React is a JavaScript UI library built by Facebook, and it replaces the view layer of your application. The components in React are declarative, composable, and reusable, so that you can use a single component at multiple places. And these components are declarative and use a template which is similar to HTML, and it's called JSX. And you write this within your JavaScript files, and it's a complete opposite to how you would have been used to writing JavaScript within your HTML files. And React uses the virtual DOM, which makes it blazing fast. Let's talk a little bit about GraphQL. GraphQL is a query language, and with GraphQL you ask for what you need and you get exactly that, no more and no less. And it is an alternative to REST API, and I would argue it's a great alternative to REST API. And with GraphQL it has a single endpoint, and you would not need to fetch multiple endpoints to get multiple requests. For example, let's say you need a post, a featured image, and author details. You would not need to hit 3 different endpoints as using REST API. You would get all these data in a single request. And it was created by Facebook, and it is now open source. So today I'm going to talk to you all about using Gatsby with WordPress and why it's a great choice. Gatsby is a Jamstack generator or static site generator, and it has all the great benefits of being blazing fast, cheap, easy, and so on. And WordPress is a great powerful CMS that we all love and use, and it powers a third of the web. So combining the niftiness of Gatsby with the power of the CMS that WordPress is, we can have a great win-win situation for us. So that's what we're going to talk today. So there are 2 ways to approach this. The first way is to use the WordPress REST API, and this would take the REST API and wrap it in a GraphQL schema. And the second way is to use the WPGraphQL WordPress plugin, and which will fetch the data from this WordPress GraphQL endpoint and wrap it in a schema. And I would say this is the recommended way by many people and myself. Using WPGraphQL, you have to install this Gatsby source GraphQL plugin, which is a Gatsby plugin, and this plugin will fetch the GraphQL from WPGraphQL and stitches them into a schema. And it needs this WPGraphQL plugin on your WordPress site, and I argue it's a faster and more scalable way than using REST API. Let's talk a little bit about WordPress GraphQL or WPGraphQL. WPGraphQL exposes your WordPress data as GraphQL schema, and it's an open source project built by our friend Jason Bahl. With this, you install a WordPress plugin, and it has add-ons for ACF and custom post type, UI, and more. So starting a Gatsby project. For starting a Gatsby project, you need Node and NPM. Once you have them installed, you install Gatsby CLI as a global NPM package. After that, you navigate to a desired folder and Gatsby new my project, or the name of your project, and you change directory into that project and type in Gatsby develop in your terminal. And this will open a developer environment in your terminal, and you can go on building your project in your Visual Studio Code or any code editor of your choice. I hope you realize how easy it is to get started with Gatsby. Now that we have talked about Gatsby, let's talk about a feature that Gatsby introduced late last year, which is Gatsby Themes. With Gatsby Themes, you abstract away the code into a separate NPM module, and you let the end user focus on content. For example, when you have markdown files of content, you can store it in the site folder, and the code for the template and functionality will be in a theme folder. And you use multiple themes on the same project. For example, let's say you have a marketing site and an e-commerce site and a documentation site. You can have 3 different themes on the same website. And it also has child theme support like WordPress, which is a great thing for us. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about Gatsby WordPress themes, which is an open source project where we ported a few WordPress themes to Gatsby. It was initiated by Zach Gordon, and we ported the 2019 Gatsby theme and the Tabor Gatsby theme to WordPress. We ported the 2019 WordPress theme and the Tabor WordPress theme to Gatsby. Check out gatsbywpthemes.com for more. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the lessons that I have learned while using these two technologies. The first lesson is to not put everything in one place. For example, you have Gatsby Node.js, for example, which will build the static files by fetching data and creating static HTML and CSS and JavaScript files. So in this file, do not put all the code here, but rather put the code inside separate files and call those functions into this file. And the second lesson is to be a part of the growing community. The Gatsby and WordPress and WPGraphQL community are super kind and helpful, and you can be a part of this growing community and to receive help and also to help others and grow as a person and as a community. And the final lesson is that you may actually not need a static site generator, because for a lot of reasons WordPress alone can be a good solution for you. For example, when you publish a post or a page with WordPress, it is already available to you, but with Gatsby it takes some time for it to build the whole website, and then the post will be available. And they are working on incremental builds, I believe, which is not yet available for WordPress. So we'll wait for that. And the other reason is that most of the WordPress plugins may not work out of the box, and you have to add functionality using REST API or GraphQL for it to work. So these are the few reasons you may not want to use Gatsby or static site generator. But it also has a lot of benefits that we talked a little earlier. So let's run over what we covered today. We started with Jamstack and static site generators, and we spoke about Gatsby and then WordPress with Gatsby, and we talked about this plugin which is used to fetch data from WPGraphQL, and we finally spoke about Gatsby Themes. So you can read this article that I wrote about how Gatsby and WordPress have helped me build a few nice sites, and you can check out this tutorial that I wrote about how we converted a WordPress theme to a Gatsby theme, and you can check out the two Jason Bahl and Jason Lengstoff talk about Gatsby and WordPress, and finally watch Jason Bahl's talk at WordCamp Phoenix. So final message for all: let us spread kindness and positivity, And thank you so much for having me today. It was a pleasure talking to you. I want to mention two people today, Jason Bahl and Tessa Crisel, because I did not get a US visa and I had to do this talk remotely, and these two people have played a tremendous role to making this a reality. So thank you, Jason, and thank you, Tessa. And you can find me on Twitter at MuhsinLK and reach out to me if you have questions, and also email me if you have questions at muhammad@rtcam.com. And we are also hiring. We are an enterprise WordPress agency doing WordPress projects, and also we work with React. So if you want to work alongside me, check out rt.cam/join. Thank you. Goodbye.